What? Did I miss it?
No, you must show that.
I must show? I'll see if I can find it. But I guess, yeah. Where's one?
Macaroni, look, there's per people over there. Okay, people, I'm going to tell you what I said. I said Caleb.
Looks like there's someone about to talk.
This yours?
No, I found it on the floor, so I didn't know, so I just put it there. No, mine is attached. This is mine.
My wife would love that. What did you get?
Verizon.
Oh, but that's an Android.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they make it for iPhones.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Actually, though, I wanted to get a case that, even though this has a protector on it, I wanted to get sort of a wallet case. Yeah.
You don't have to do that. You just have to get one of those screen protectors.
Yeah, that's on there already.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Then you should be good.
But still, I want to further something further.
We're not doing it.
Oh, there's also something.
The only thing with that
They
is...
didn't have it at Verizon. Like, what's up with this?
The only thing is that it messes with your microphone sometimes and your speaker.
It's fun that it's camera.
The wallet?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, like my wife had this one where it was like a wallet too. When she tried just talking to people, they wouldn't hear her. And then for a long time she thought it was the phone. And then they said, and then she took it out of the case. And then she found it.
Well, that's a good point. That's okay.
Yeah, that's why I don't, like right now, I have my phone out of a case. Because the speaker and the microphone.
Right.
Yeah, I could get,
I get it.
There's a lot of it accessible to this.
No, I never thought of it as a meeting. Desolation. Oh, yeah.
You have the archive. Straight down this cloud. And the next step is to index that
I didn't see the people from the San Fe, New Mexico this time. They're usually here.
But there is so not to balance the color situation.
Hello. We have sound. It's a beautiful thing. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 3rd annual Indigenous Peoples Day here in Ogapoge, Tewa territory. Thank you all for coming out today. My name is Christina M. Castro. I am one of the organizers of today's activities. We have a wonderful lineup for you today, from traditional dances to contemporary artistic expressions by a intertribal mix of creative natives. We look forward to sharing our talents with you today. I was just thinking as I'm standing here, I'm looking across at this obelisk, this thing here in the middle of the plaza, and there's a placard on it that I can see here that was erected maybe 100 years ago, and it referenced the savage Indians. Here on this obelisk, if you look on that wall, they took out the savage, the word savage. So we've come a long way. We are not savage, we are resilient. We are the dreams of our ancestors made true. I am Tesuque Pueblo, and we are honored to reclaim this space as Indigenous land today and every day. Before we start with our first dance, well, it's not our first, but the afternoon agenda programming, I would like to bring your attention to an important issue currently affecting our Indigenous communities, Indian country, and that is missing and murdered Indigenous women. This is an epidemic in our communities. New Mexico has currently the highest rate of missing and murdered Indigenous women. Albuquerque is the second city after Seattle with the highest rate of missing and murdered Indigenous women. American Indian and Alaskan Native women face murder rates that are more than 10 times the national average. Homicide is the third leading cause of death among Native girls and women ages 10 to 24. American Indian and Alaskan Native women are nearly 2.5 times more likely to be sexually assaulted than women of the general population. 70% of these crimes are committed by persons of a different race who more often than not fall through the cracks of the judicial system and are not held accountable for the crimes committed against Indigenous women. We are currently under attack and we need your help. We need you to speak to your state representatives. Just last week, our governor of New Mexico, Michelle Lujan Grisham, announced that they have created a task force to help directly address this issue, to begin to collect data. Because as we know in the Western world, unless it's quantified and there's data, we need that to prove that there is in fact a problem. Those of us as Indigenous people and women know it's been a problem since the beginning. This is a systematic issue of erasure. So it's wonderful to celebrate with you today, but we also have real issues impacting our community and our women that you need to know about. If you stand in solidarity with us, look into missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, trans, two-spirited relatives. We are under attack and we need your help. And with that said, I would like to introduce a beautiful group of dancers, female dancers and male drummers from Oke Owinge. And they're going to honor us today with beautiful Pueblo dances in honor of our women, in honor of all women, in honor of everybody today. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome the family of youth dancers from Oke Owinge Pueblo.
Check, check. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christian Romero from Winga. My dancers, I have Blue Flower Cordero on the left, which is my mother, Milo Garcia, and Camila Bird, all from Winga Pueblo. The dance that you just saw was a bow and arrow dance. It's a women's choice dance that can be done between Easter and Mother's Day. This dance is traditionally done when the women are dressed as men, but today, like how Christina said, where there's an issue with Indigenous women being lost and other issues like that, we let the women dress like women-like today to show their power, to give a blessing for everyone, and to show that we still have strength. Hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, family of youth dancers from Tesuque Pueblo. I hope you all are enjoying the day. Okay, so who's proud to be Indigenous today?
Yeah.
Nice. Who's proud to be with Indigenous people today?
Yeah.
We are so blessed to live in a place that has a huge Indigenous influence. There are 19 pueblos in the state of New Mexico. We also have our Apache family and our Dene family. There are 19 pueblos that speak several different languages. We do not speak all the same language, nor is there a universal Indian language. So just a little bit of history for those of you who may be visiting. How about tourists? Who are tourists? Welcome, tourists. Come spend your money. Support all these folks you see under the portal are native local artisans. So spend your money with them, straight to the source, right? We have a lot of folks that are selling, making a living here off Indigenous arts. But a lot of these galleries, they mark up the prices from what they buy it from the people. So the best way you can support Indigenous people is buying directly from them, the artists themselves. What else did I want to say? I had one more thing, but maybe it'll come back to me. So moving on with our agenda, I would like to introduce a personal friend of mine. We went to college at UNM together. He represents Tesuque Pueblo. His name is Dr. Matthew J. Martinez. He works with the Museum of Indian Arts and Culture up on Museum Hill. So if you are visiting, or even if you're not visiting, local residents can get into the New Mexico State Museums for free on Sundays. So visit your local museums and support Museum Hill. And we would like to bring up Dr. Matthew J. Martinez to talk a little bit about the history of this place that you are sitting and standing on today. Can you say it with me in Tewa? Oga Poge. Oga Poge. Great, thank you. Come on up, Dr. Martinez.
That's the name of this place.
Oh, okay.
Hold on, hold on.
Hear me? Can you hear me now? Good afternoon. Doon sa gitsamo. Oat samo. Koat si opa. Yate bene. It's a beautiful day, and I appreciate getting introduced by Dr. Castro. We knew each other as students, undergraduates at the University of New Mexico, and our paths have always crossed and intertwined and entangled as we continue to move forward and advocate for our communities. And it's awesome to see her as a proud mother of Macy, and I have my son Malachi here on the stage. So it's another generation of how we continue to cross paths as parents, honoring those who came before. I just want to thank the dancers, Okawinged dancers, Kundawa, Saondi Shade. The dance that you all saw was a bow and arrow dance, which honored the women's presence and attributions to our place of here. Former students of mine, Christian, Romero, and Blue Flower. And so it's always good to see students of mine engaged in community work and activism. And so with that, I'm going to share with you a recent example of a publication that I wrote called Honoring the Spirit of Ogapoge. As Dr. Castro mentioned, Ogapoge is the place name of Santa Fe, which translates to White Shell Water Place. Before that, the first capital of New Mexico was San Juan Pueblo, also known as Oquewingue, which is also the place of the first American Revolution in 1680. So we think about the first capital, the first revolution, that Native people are people of firsts. And the list goes on and on when we think about today as the first to graduate college, the first to earn doctorate degrees, the first New Mexico woman elected to Congress, American Indians, Representative Deb Haaland. And certainly we think about not being the last, and that there's a longing of legacy to be continued in all the pathways. There's a quote I'm going to read by Robert Mirabal from Tesuque Pueblo. And he's, without song, there's no dance. Without dance, there's no rain. Without rain, there's no corn. And the cycle and the circles continue as an evolution of how dance brings prayer, how prayer brings rain and snow and clouds to feed our people. And it is the people that continue to honor this through song and ceremony that we just saw here. Along the Rio Grande is a vast landscape of mountain ranges, rivers, and valleys rich in agricultural land with nearby petroglyphs dating back at least 10,000 years. Like a necklace of knotted cords, the Northern Rio Grande corridor weaves together ancestral homelands like Puye, Pecos, Bandelier, Chaco Canyon, and many other villages that feed Santa Fe's memory and spirit. We never left, we never abandoned those places. They continue to be alive and called on through song, through memory, and through prayer. From our perspective, these places still continue to be home. Pueblo people have always written history, and we continue to be shaped by text and pottery, weavings, and petroglyphs, documenting migration patterns and seasonal rotations. Often not fully or understanding this history, and dance and ceremony would continue to call upon it for guidance. We are a people of stories. Our dance rhythms and motions tell stories within stories. Through story, life is created. And it is through this bow, this pathway, this road, that we continue to follow. Remembering and honoring place is the essence of all Indigenous peoples. The place we honor also embodies the living spirit of Ogapoge, as well as all those who came before. Indigenous peoples are inherently connected to land and our creation stories. We talk about emergence from lakes, mountains, and streams. Everything is connected. Nothing is separate, meaning that rock people, cloud people, corn people, animals, and all people are related and connected. The notion of relationships fundamentally defines our existence to the world. The Pueblos have always had a relationship with Indigenous peoples across the Americas. This is evident in our borrowed words, in our food, and our dress. Beyond the Southwest, we traded coral and shells, which continue to be used in dance, as well as other items such as macaw feathers. Between the 11th and 14th centuries, the Southwest was a trading hub for Mesoamericans. Mexica and other Nahuatl-speaking communities bartered, perhaps beans for gems unique to the Southwest, such as turquoise. Turquoise from the Santa Fe mines, from Cerrillo's mines here, is found as far away as Chichen Itza, Mexico, in a region where no turquoise mines existed. From a spiritual and cultural perspective, the Pueblos have always had a practice of a life free of geographic boundaries and borders while remaining within a localized homeland. Our sense of direction is land-based. In English, there's no concept of north, south, east, or west per se. For example, our east in Tewa is known as Tampia, where the sun rises. Our mountains define our boundaries. Teshuping, Tekumuping, Kuseping, Okuping are all the names that define this Tewa landscape. Every indigenous community in New Mexico has their own notion for these places that define the markers, and they continue to be used and remembered in everyday cultural practices. Unlike other tribes that relocated, or we often hear about, quote, more nomadic tribes, Pueblo people are place-based. Just as the United States turns to the National Archives in DC, or the Catholic Church looks to the Vatican in Rome, our Pueblo memory and archives are located here. Since time immemorial, we look to these surrounding landscapes for knowledge and spiritual nourishment. Being, depending on how you say it, is also the word for mountain. These are one and the same, being and heart. As the heart of the mountain is often the heart and soul of the ecological system and body. In the most basic sense, the human being is just one of the many things living. To privilege human experience in relation to place is to limit our knowledge systems. Many of Santa Fe's newest arrivals seek to draw on the power of natural items such as stone and mud for healing purposes, a practice that has been respectfully conducted for generations. We not only look to the earth to restore balance, but to animals for guidance, wisdom, knowledge, and storytelling. For Pueblo people, the New Mexico state bird, we also know as the roadrunner. In Tewa, we call it the ogowit. The desert's majestic and speedy ogowit is often spotted running over the hills, along the highways. We see its image fancied up in tourist gift shops, train stations, and named in local cuisines. There are many stories of this bird, of this animal, being revered not only from a Pueblo perspective, but across indigenous tribes throughout the Americas. Pueblo people respect it for providing power and protection because the tracks of the ogowit commonly take the form of an X, concealing the direction in which it is headed. Ritual items are often marked with X's to throw off spirits and energy. To appreciate Ogapoge is to recognize that we live within a vast landscape surrounded by trickster stories and coyote voices. The ogowit's X's may mislead us, but we still know this place to be home. A home not to own or to capture, but a homeland conducive to our staying on track within the shifting landscape of all spirits that we call Ogapoge. Kundawa. Thank you. I just wanted to share a snapshot of stories of how we think about this place, not only from a human perspective, but from an animal perspective. And seeing these doves, these birds, the sunlight, smelling the fajitas on the plaza, all of that is what defines us as a community and as people. And one way to recognize that is to think about the holistic nature of a place that we're born from, that we can point to, and these mountains, and these rivers, and these streams. And every day that I walk through the plaza, that I walk through my home, that I make a cup of coffee in the morning, it's just that moment in time that reminds me that this is a special place. And we think about Ogapoge, long ago, thousands of years of a place occupied from people who traveled here. So it's nothing new that we're gathered here as a community and as a place to share stories, to share laughs, and to share recipes, right? Because we just had lunch, and I think about the food as a recipe that unites all of us too. So I appreciate sharing a little bit of words. Usually I like to talk to people after if there's any questions about history or culture when we think about US history. So one thing about New Mexico is that every New Mexico student is required to take a New Mexico history class to graduate. There's not a lot of curriculum written by Native, Indigenous peoples to incorporate in the classroom. So my charge, people like Dr. Castro, are very much continuing this way of developing curriculum in ways that are conducive to teaching appropriately about not only Native history, but New Mexico history, US history, and really international history. And so with that, I invite you all to support curriculum endeavors, hiring of more Native teachers, counselors, and to think about parent engagement in multiple ways, and not just for parent-teacher conferences or when you're called in, right? But there's many ways to support your kids. So again, thank you for allowing me some time this morning to share some words. May you have a great day, and blessings to all of you. Kundawa. Where's Dr. Castro? Can I turn the mic to her? Do you want to tell everybody your nickname?
We have a little bit of time. We can tell some jokes. We can talk about our old college days at UNM.
I don't remember, it's a blackout.
Well, here we are, still doing community work, right? Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Matthew J. Martinez. He's up there on Museum Hill at the Museum of Indian Arts and Culture. Go check him out and check out the museums on Museum Hill. So we're going to have a little break right now. I encourage you to make your way around to all the booths, various Native nonprofits and organizations that help the Native community. Also want to highlight the Santa Fe Indian Center here in Santa Fe. Their booth is right over here, and they are selling t-shirts for today's event. It's the 3rd annual Indigenous Peoples Day. And George Toya is the designer of the t-shirts. He is from Tesuque Pueblo, and you can go meet the artist. He's over there under the blue tents. Please support Native artists, and we shall be back shortly. Thank you.
Okay, folks, grab your bags. Let's go. Here.
What is it? 119.
I have to go for 2. You get off 2. 2.
Oh, you have to go first.
Because they don't need to use the
You want to start? Okay, so also, while we have this intermission, if any of the organizations that are represented would like to take a few minutes to talk about your organization and the services you provide, come on up and we'll just go one by one. Would you like to start, Stephen Laurence? Stephen Laurence is a part of the Lightning Boy Foundation, and he can tell you a little bit more about what they do.
Thank you, Christina. Good morning or good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Indigenous Day. We're very proud of the fact